Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Hopefully everyone is enjoying the festive holiday season, enjoying spending time with loved ones and relatives, and keeping in mind that giving to others is more important than any selfish concerns. Whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah, it is that time of the year for reflection on how you arrived to where you are now, remembering the loved ones who are no longer with us, and how you can care for others within and outside of your orbit in the present and future. So with that in mind, it's time to jump into today's topic, mutilation of cattle by the alien presence on Earth. Yes, that's what we're going to talk about today. It's something that I've talked about a number of times on this show, and it's time to talk about it again because, you know, we have the proof now that we're not alone. I mean, a lot of us already knew this for a long time, but now we have the absolute proof that shows that we're not alone, and a lot of people still have trouble accepting the fact that what is responsible for all of these cattle mutilations, for the most part, I would say, it is this alien presence on Earth. I mean, this is something that has been investigated by people like Linda Moulton Howe. She started her investigations back in the 1970s, and there's just no question, as far as anyone should be concerned, what's going on here is that for some reason, cattle, amongst other livestock, are targeted. But most of all, we notice it's the cattle. That's, you know, a lot of ranchers find this out the hard way, and they have no explanation for it. A lot of them, some of them believe it's satanic cults or just predators. But that's not the case. And I think the problem with the human race here, right, when it comes to this subject, when it comes to this whole alien presence on Earth issue, is that we just don't want to face the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that these cattle are being mutilated and having their blood completely drained from their bodies by this alien intelligence. There's just no question about it. I mean, people have seen UFOs in a lot of these cases. I've talked about a number of these cases in various other podcasts where people over the years, throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, and basically we didn't start noticing this until late 1960s when there was a case in Colorado involving a horse that was mutilated in this horrible, horrific fashion. But the problem is that we're not accepting the reality of the situation. I mean, the FBI investigated over, I think it was a 4-year period back in the 1970s, and they didn't come up with any explanation. That's because the explanation is something that's above their pay grade. That's because the explanation is that there's an intelligent race of beings here that is responsible for this. That's what it is. That's what it is, and we still deny it. We're still denying a lot of people that have been affected by this. They just can't bring themselves to admit to the reality of the situation, and that is that these creatures, these alien creatures, whatever we don't know what. We could argue all day about why they're doing this, right? We'll get into that a little bit here, but the reality is that they are the ones responsible for a lot of these cattle mutilations. These ones where, not only are there the blood in a lot of these bovine, right? The blood is completely drained. There's no evidence of blood around the carcass when they're found, right? There's no evidence whatsoever of a drop of blood. It's all gone. So, I mean, it just doesn't vanish, right? Blood from a body is just not going to vanish. It's not just going to seep. All of it's not all going to seep into the ground. There's going to be some evidence there. But you even have some experts that will try to tell us, right, that is, it must have just seeped into the ground. That's why we can't see. That's nonsense. It's like when it comes to aliens, when it comes to this extraterrestrial non-human intelligence hypothesis, right? Actually, it's not a hypothesis anymore. It's an absolute fact. It's a reality. When it comes to this, right? A lot of people, they just can't bring themselves to point to that as the reason behind this. Instead, they'll have to come up with other explanations, which they don't have any evidence whatsoever to back any of these claims up. When they say it's Satanists, that's nonsense. Where's your proof? No one's ever been caught after all of these decades of having to deal with this situation. No one has ever been busted, ever, right? Nobody's been caught. And how do you explain it? Not only is the blood drained from them, but body parts like ears, the tongue, the rectum are cored away, and it looks like it's with laser precision. Like the wounds are all cauterized on top of it. Eyeballs are removed. right? Obviously, something's happening here, and it has to. It's intelligence is behind it, but it's not human beings, because human beings. Why would a human being do something like this? What kind of cult would do something like that? For one thing, even a satanic cult wouldn't do something like that. To be quite honest with you, if you ever looked into what Satanists do, that's not something that they would do. So the explanation is that aliens are doing this. Now, I just want to point out. Now, earlier today, I was taking a ride. Excuse me. I was taking a ride because I needed to get some medicine, because it's over a week now. I've been sick for over a week, right? Apparently it's RSV, right? And around the same time last year, I had the same thing. And I guess I'm not learning my lesson, because I should have got it. I believe, from what I understand, there is a vaccine for it, and that maybe would have prevented me from getting sick like this. But obviously, I didn't get that vaccine, and now I've been sick for over a week, coughing my brains out. So today I was on a ride. I just had, because there wasn't enough medicine in the house, and I needed to go get some medicine, some cough suppressants, right? And I'm taking a ride, and I see this big sign on the side of the road for a big bacon mushroom double cheeseburger at Wendy's, and it looked really good. Now, I didn't go there because I knew that there was a whole bunch of leftovers in the refrigerator from yesterday, right, from Christmas. So I didn't do that, but it looked really good. And a lot of us out there, we eat beef. Now, I don't think that's what's happening with these beings, but I think that they might be using the blood. I mean, it's just a hypothesis. We don't know. We could argue about this, but they're doing it for some reason. They're mutilating the cattle, removing the blood and taking away the body parts for some purpose. Now, there have been stories of from some abductees that say they saw these creatures receive their nutrients through the pores of their skin, and they get in tanks, and maybe that's what's happening. Maybe they take that blood from cows, and they mix it in with something else, and then they sit in these tanks, and that's how they get their nutrition. Right? Who knows? We could argue about that all day, but the bottom line is what we need to not argue about anymore is the fact that it's these beings. They're the ones who are responsible for a lot of these cattle mutilations. That's the reality of the situation, and we need to start facing that fact, because that's what it is. There's no question about it. I mean, over the years, there's been so many different reports of UFOs being seen in the area. Sometimes some people have stayed up all night, trying to wait to see if something happens. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they did see things that happen. They saw lights in the sky, and then the next day, guess what? Another mutilated cow. There's no other explanation for it other than it's these alien beings. It's the best explanation for it. There's no, as far as I'm concerned, that's what it is. That's who's responsible for it. But for some reason, the humans as a whole, we're just too stupid or something. There's something wrong with us. There's some sort of a mental block for us. We just don't want to believe this. We don't want to accept this reality, but that's what it is. That's what it is. Anyway, I want to go through a couple of articles here that I dug up. Now, here was a recent article about some things going on in Oregon. And this was from thetravel.com. And it says here, Oregon's biggest mystery spans decades and is still unsolved. Now, Oregon is just one of many states in the United States. And there's other places across the world, not just in the United States, that had to deal with this issue. But anyway, let's read what this article says. It says, for few mysteries have as persistently defied solving as the one that has plagued Oregon intermittently since the late 1970s. No, not why over 130 people have never returned from Oregon's most scenic peak, although that's also fascinating, but rather the brutal but surgically precise killing of some of the state's most valuable livestock. Of course, Oregon is not the only place where cattle mutilations have occurred. More than a dozen United States have seen these strange attacks against cattle and other animals since the late 1960s. However, Oregon is the site of some of the most unusual recent attacks. And then it gets into an incident that happened in 2019. 5 valuable bulls worth about $6,000 each were killed on a ranch in Oregon's Silvies Valley in 2019. What was remarkable was not that they were dead. Cattle frequently die either at slaughter or for other reasons such as predators or disease. But these 5 had been completely drained of blood without spilling a drop, and certain body parts like the tongue and genitals were removed with what was described as surgical precision. No predator kills like that, nor did these cattle waste away from any disease. So as you see, it's not people doing this. I mean, people are not doing this. They would have. It's happened so many times over the decades now, right? Somebody would have been caught by now. And in a lot of cases, right, there's no footprints around the carcasses, right, when they're found. These emaciated carcasses. There's no footprints around them. A lot of times, sometimes the bones are broke for some reason, as if they were dropped from a height. Obviously, what's happening here is these beings are showing up in their craft. They're somehow drawing up the cattle inside the craft for who knows how long it takes. They're removing the blood, removing some body parts surgically, and then just dropping the body on the ground and taking off. And then the next day, the farmer or the cattle rancher's thinking to himself, "Oh, must be Satanists," which is absurd on its face. But anyway, let's continue with this article. It says, the case bore striking similarities to other Oregon attacks. In 2021, 7 more cattle were found with body parts removed, this time in Crook County. In 2017, a cow was found mutilated near Princeton, like the Silvies Valley attack in Harney County. During the 1980s, a cow was mutilated in Pendleton, Oregon, in Umatilla County. In 1977 and 1978, cattle mutilations occurred in Union, Lynn, and Wallowa counties. Strange cattle mutilations have also been reported in Oregon's Grant, Gilliam, Wasco, Wheeler, and Lake counties. No investigation into these crimes has ever found a solution, but there are theories aplenty. Well, let me just stop there again. There is the one theory that only makes any sense whatsoever. Actually, I believe that it is the correct answer to this. It's not even a theory as far as anyone should be concerned. It's these beings. That's who's responsible. There is no other explanation. It's not predators. Predators are not capable of removing body parts from a cow using laser technology. That doesn't happen. So that can't happen. Even Satanists, right? Satanists would leave footprints in the ground, right? Satanists, where are they getting this equipment from? They would have been caught by this point. It's just all of these other explanations, right? Just don't make any sense to me. They seem more absurd to me than the alien explanation. Anyway, let's see here. Let me skip forward a little bit. It said, and here's a part of the article where it says, what caused the Oregon attacks? Aliens are among the most frequently named suspects, and that should be the case because that's who is responsible. Aliens. That's who's responsible, or non-human intelligence, whatever you want to say, right? But it's those beings, whatever they are, those other beings that are here on this planet. That's who's responsible. And for some reason, we don't want to accept this. Some of us do, right? Some of us realize that's what it is. But even some people in the UFO community don't want to accept it. Some people in the UFO community believe it's the government doing this for some... Why? If that doesn't make any sense either. If the government wanted to, take apart a cow, they could just buy one, and do it in the privacy. I mean, why would they sneak into someone's ranch in the middle of the night and mutilate some cow and just let it there? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense either. None of those other explanations make any sense when you really think about them, right? The only one that makes sense is that aliens are responsible. Anyway, continuing, it says, why do mutilated cattle keep being found across the United States and in Oregon specifically? Despite thousands of cases nationwide, there's little evidence to support any theories. I disagree. I beg to differ with that. Because people have seen UFOs, right? And we know that these beings are here. For a lot of different reasons we know this, right? So that's who it is. There's no mystery really here. I mean, there is some mystery to it. The mystery is why are they doing it? I think it could be for food purposes, but that's only a hypothesis. But it is them, these creatures, they are the ones who are responsible. That's what we need to start facing this fact. That's who it is. That's who it is. Nothing else makes any sense. But due to the strange elements in the killings, the absence of blood, the removal of tongues, sex organs, and other body parts, the fact that no tracks are ever found, and that scavengers refuse to touch these animals, many have leaped to supernatural explanations. Now, for some reason, I don't think that an alien presence on Earth is supernatural. I mean, supernatural to me, that means like ghosts or something, That's supernatural. I mean, aliens here, that's just, that's what's supernatural about it. No, it's natural because they're here and there's nothing supernatural about it. That's just part of this deal we're all part of, right? And they're real. They're really here. There's nothing supernatural about it. It's natural. Harney County Sheriff's Deputy Dan Harney told NPR that aliens are a popularly proposed culprit. Well, yeah, there's a good reason for that. A lot of people lean toward the aliens. One caller had told us to look for basically a depression under the carcass because he said that the alien ships will kind of beam the cow up and do whatever they're going to do with it. Then they just drop them from a great height. Yes, that's what looks like what's happening. Anyway, continuing, he says, if this sounds absurd, it should be noted that aliens have been linked to many unexplained things. For example, Area 51 conspiracy theories and the many ancient structures are believed to be built by aliens. But aliens crop up often in discussions of cattle mutilations. Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries mentioned the possibility, and journalist Linda Moulton Howe wrote a book and made a documentary about the topic. I think she made more than one documentary. Yeah, actually, the first one she did, what was that called? Strange Harvest was really something else. If you have access to that one, check it out. Anyway, cults have been associated with many places in California with morbid backstories. Satanic versions have also been floated as potential malefactors in the ongoing mystery of cattle mutilations. However, when the unusual slayings began happening in droves in the 1970s, ranchers suspected the United States government of testing a chemical or biological weapon. After all, such testing had killed 6,000 sheep around Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah in 1968. Now, let me tell you something. Again, has nothing to do. The government is not responsible for this. It makes absolutely zero sense. The government, right, the federal government, does not want people to think that there are aliens here in the first place. So one of the theories I hear coming from within the UFO community is that, the government is doing this to make us think that there are aliens here. Now, why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. If they don't want us, they're telling us publicly all the time there's no evidence of aliens or extraterrestrials or NHI, right? They're telling us this all the time. So then why would they try to do this, mutilate cattle and then make it look like aliens are doing it? That makes absolutely no sense. And even if the government is responsible, say the government was responsible, somebody would have been caught by now. It would have been busted. Somebody, a journalist, anybody. There's so many investigations into this over the years. By this point, we would have had the culprit. Right, it would have been over with. But the reason we don't is because it's these aliens and they're technologically advanced, way more advanced than we are. And that's why they keep getting away with it all the time, every year after year after year. Anyway, continuing, it says, neither seems likely considering the number of cases across so many states. A more interesting theory that deals with the problem of geography has been posed, though. Agricultural historian Michael Goldman has posited that economic anxiety and distrust of the government have caused ranchers to look for more conspiracy-based reasons for the killing, citing rising cattle feed costs and beef price freezes in the 1970s as reasons for the widespread mutilation panic during that decade. Again, that's totally ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. I love when they bring up someone like an agricultural historian to give you the answer to something like this. And then this is what they give you. That's garbage. Anyway, it doesn't provide a solution to the unusual mutilations, but not everyone agrees that they're that strange. When retired FBI agent Kenneth Rommel investigated in the late 1970s, he thought that the wounds were consistent with scavengers, with the deaths themselves attributable to poison or disease. Well, guess what? Kenneth Rommel was gaslighting you, because that's not the case, folks. That's just not the case. Anyway, I want to shoot over to a different article, and this was a recent article in the Express.com. Aliens disemboweling cows mystery takes new twist as rancher finds clues. Now, of course, I will leave the links for all these articles, but this one here has someone an ex-rancher who has his explanation, and it's humans, and it's totally absurd on its face. It's more absurd than aliens. Anyway, let's check this out. It says, experts on a mission to crack America's longest-running murder mystery have unearthed new clues in a puzzle that has haunted ranchers since the 1970s. From Kansas to Oregon, there have been eerie incidents of cattle found slain, their reproductive organs surgically removed, yet not a drop of blood left behind at the scenes. These bizarre occurrences sparked fears of extraterrestrial beings with an odd fascination for bovine anatomy. Again, let me just stop there again. I think they're using it possibly for food, but that doesn't make me right. It could be for other reasons, but I think number one reason is probably food. That would be my guess. I think that they're draining the blood, and who knows? Maybe the little body parts they remove surgically. Maybe they're like delicacies or something. Who knows? Maybe the praying mantis ones like to chew on cow tongue or something like that. That's possible. We don't know. Again, we can only guess. But I think it's the main thing here is that they're being drained of their blood. That's the main thing to focus on here. Why would they be doing that? I think they're doing that for nutritional reasons, and they need it. They need it to survive, like vampires, basically. Anyway, it says, these bizarre occurrences sparked fears of extraterrestrial beings with an odd fascination for bovine anatomy. However, an ex-rancher from Oregon posits that these bovine deaths are the work of a sophisticated network of humans. Wow! A sophisticated network of humans are doing this. There's a group of guys and ladies out there, right, that are doing this, and they're sophisticated, and they're doing this for reasons unknown for decades, and they get away with it every single time. That's what this guy's saying. Colby Marshall, and this guy is somebody who has experienced these things up close and personal. Colby Marshall stumbled upon 5 bulls in 2017, all with their tongues excised. He suspects a cult engaging in ritualistic use of the animal parts is responsible. His theory, and this is his own words, they're using some sort of toxin that causes the animal to go catatonic. There's no sign of struggle with the animal, so they dart them or something. But there's absolutely no evidence of this, but that's all he could come up with, because he does not, Colby, and as well as a lot of other people out there, they don't want to face the reality of the situation. They don't want to face the reality of the situation, which is that there's an alien presence here that's responsible, that's doing this. That's what's doing it. Has nothing to do with people. Nothing at all. He further explained that the lack of blood could be because the perpetrators extracted, quote, from the animal's tongue, which they then take because that is the one piece of forensic evidence. You gotta be kidding me. Anyway, speaking to Fox News Digital, Marshall expressed his skepticism about alien involvement. Now, do I think they're using their technology to come after free-range bulls in eastern Oregon? No, I don't think they would have better uses of their technology than that. The Federal Bureau of Investigations first reported on the mutilated cows in 1974, citing cases in Oklahoma and Nebraska. The agency investigated the deaths until 1978, but never identified a perpetrator. That's because it was aliens. Let me stop there. That's because it was aliens. The perpetrators were aliens and in their UFOs, in their flying saucers. And we just don't have that kind of technology to catch them in the act. And if we did, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. That's the bottom line here. That's the bottom line. However, by the end of the decade, over 10,000 instances of cattle mutilation had been documented, primarily at small-scale ranches in the West and Midwest. Yeah, it's still going on. I mean, we've talked about it on here over the last couple of years, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado. There's Oregon, right? It's still happening all the time. Pennsylvania, there's been some cases, right? It's all over the place, right? And it's never stopped. And the reason it's never stopped and the reason no one's ever been caught is because it's aliens, but we can't admit to it because there's something wrong with us, with the human race. We're too afraid to admit to this reality. That's what it is. We don't want to face up to it. That's what it is. But it is aliens. Make no mistake. Marshall has launched his own investigation into the crime, suspecting that multiple individuals were involved in the killings. He explained that one person would have held up his leg while another made an incision and cut around the testicles to remove them. So they're using some sort of a mystery chemical to make these cows go into a state of catatonia, right? And then they were able to do these things to them and then remove the blood and everything somehow without leaving a trace, including their own footsteps. But that's more absurd than the idea of aliens doing it. He added, then you've got to hand all that material to somebody, because if you drop it on the ground, you're going to cause traction, you're going to drop blood. There would be signs. Within 24 hours of their deaths, Marshall and his team took blood samples from the bulls and found no evidence of chemicals in the animals' bloodstreams. Well, there you go. There was no evidence of chemicals in their bloodstreams at all. He added, anything that metabolizes quickly in the bloodstream is not going to be detectable. That's one of the things that I think is key to this, is that this toxin they're using metabolizes quickly. Again, none of this makes any sense, though, because, see, they're forgetting the fact that some people have seen the lights in the sky and then the next day the cattle is mutilated. Right. So this is like you're grasping at for an explanation that's not real. You're trying to make it real by saying these things, right? Oh yeah, I would have metabolized the whatever they shot into them, the toxin that they used to knock them out, right? That metabolized in their blood, and that's how they were able to mutilate them. But again, the reason, where's the reasoning for this, right? There's no real reasoning other to say that some cult, right? Nobody's ever been caught. Again, no one's ever been caught. There's no footprints. It's incredible to me that we're just this stupid. A lot of us are just really stupid when it comes to this. We're just, I don't know what else to say about it other than we're stupid. Marshall compared it to a sedative used in horse racing, which puts the animals down for a few minutes so their hooves can be maintained. He said, it goes through the system within a few minutes, the animal gets up and they're fine. In the case of the dead cows, the animal doesn't get up because they bleed them to death. At least that's my theory. That's his theory. That's his theory, Marshall's theory, right? Because he can't accept any other theory. Right, he's incapable of accepting the alien hypothesis. He cannot accept that because then he'll be viewed as silly. Right, and see, that's again, it comes down to this stigma that's been created from all of this propaganda over the years. So a person like Colby Marshall, he can never ever go, and it's not his fault. It's just that he's a victim of this propaganda, and he's afraid of the stigma. So he has to come up with this. This to him sounds more reasonable than the reality of the situation that it's aliens. Joseph Laycock, associate professor of religious studies at Texas State University, told DailyMail.com in 2023 that Satanists likely aren't responsible since the majority oppose animal sacrifice. There you go. A majority of them oppose animal sacrifice. Besides that, again, they would have been caught by this point. I mean, over the decades, right, there have been efforts by cattle ranchers to catch the culprits. And when they tried to catch the culprits, in a lot of these instances, what happens is, nobody ever shows up, right? Except for some lights in the sky sometimes, right? And that's it. So the answer is there. That's what it is. UFOs show up and then the cattle are mutilated. That's because it's aliens. That's why. But we just don't want, it just keeps happening over and over and over, decade after decade after decade after decade. And we won't face to the fact here. We can't live up to it. We can't own it. We don't want to. A lot of us don't anyway. I mean, I do. Of course, I understand what's going on because I'm not stupid like these people are. I'm not worried about the stigma. I don't care because I know for a fact that there's something here, right? Anyway, he explained there's a possibility. There's always the possibility of teenage delinquents harming animals in the name of Satan, but I don't think that's what's happening in this case. Teenagers would probably have left tracks or other obvious evidence, and I totally agree with this guy, Laycock. Obviously, he knows what he's talking about. He is, at least he's intelligent enough to make that kind of a statement, I must say. But others are not. Unfortunately, they don't want to live up to that. They don't want to face the reality. They just can't. They can't own up to it. They just can't do it. It's just against their nature. They don't want to be. They're afraid they'll be viewed as crackpots if they go to that explanation. And it's already ingrained in their head that would be silly to think that. That would be silly that it's aliens. I mean, there have been cases. I mean, there was that one case that Linda Moulton Howe was talking about. It was in the 1990s, I believe, where actually there was a husband and wife that actually witnessed in broad daylight alien creatures, these big-headed gray creatures moving a cow into some sort of a craft. In broad daylight, they're watching it through binoculars. I mean, that's what it is. That's what's been happening. We just don't want to face the reality of it, though. A lot of us don't. Okay, there's one other thing I want to talk about here. This was an article in onwardstate.com. It says that the headline reads, Penn State researchers given $480,000 to find aliens. Let me tell you. The money was given to them. It was a grant from NASA to find aliens. Well, guess what? I'll tell you what. Save your money. Save the money. Throw it in your pockets, or give it to a charity or something. Take that $480,000, that grant, and put it, you don't need to spend this money to find aliens. We already have them. We found them for you. We found them for you earlier this year. We already have all the evidence you could possibly want. We have the proof, absolute proof, as I've been talking about on the show. There were aliens that were landed in a family's backyard in 2023. In Las Vegas. We already have the proof, so I don't know why they're wasting their money on this. I really don't. Anyway, let's look at the article. It says, a team of Penn State researchers received a grant of $480,000 from the NASA Exoplanets Research Program to search for radio and laser signals from alien civilizations. Well, again, this comes down to that SETI nonsense where people think that they're going to get signals from space, from radio signals from space, which is totally absurd, as I've always talked about on the show. Ridiculous, actually. We already have the proof that there are aliens, that there's non-human intelligence here, so we don't need to do this anymore. We don't. In fact, this isn't going to work anyway. It's not going to work. Anyway, the project, led by Pinchin Fan, a doctoral student in astronomy, astrophysics, and astrobiology, and under the supervision of her advisor, Jason Wright, professor of astronomy and astrophysics and director of the SETI Center, received a 3-year grant. This NASA grant marks a significant milestone for both Penn State and the broader field of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, Wright said in a release. This area of research has been historically underfunded by NASA, but is now seeing a resurgence in attention and support. The SETI Center is uniquely positioned to lead the exploration, thanks to Penn State's support, NASA's support, and the dedication of researchers like Pinchin, who will be driving much of this project forward. The project will work on developing new techno-signature deception techniques, which would help find detectable signs indicating the presence of intelligent civilizations in the universe. And there was a direct quote here from Fan, and it says, "We will analyze the patterns of humanity's most powerful deep space radio transmissions as a baseline for understanding the patterns of a civilization's transmissions to its own interplanetary probes. We will use these patterns as a guide to how we might eavesdrop on radio transmissions from other spacefaring civilizations that are not specifically intended for Earth." Okay, I think that's absurd. I don't think you're going to find anything. I don't think you're going to ever capture radio signals of an alien civilization. I think it's never going to happen for so many different reasons. The money would be better served in other areas. $480,000, nothing to sneeze at. I would think that they should donate it to a charity, because we already have evidence that there's an extraterrestrial. We already have the evidence, right? We don't need this. This is nonsense. If you want to try to communicate with them, you could do it with earthly means here, instead of trying to capture signals from outer space. Try to capture them right here from this planet, because they're here and they must be communicating with each other somehow, right? Maybe you could figure that out. I don't think you will, though. I don't think we'll ever figure out how they're communicating with each other. I don't think we're ever going to capture those signals. I think they're so way more advanced than we are that we're just never going to figure that out. We're never going to catch up to them. Right, it's just not going to happen. But you don't even need it this time. This is a waste of money. We already have the proof that they're here. If you're looking for aliens, right, check out the Vegas alien proof. Then you'll see for yourself, right? It's a done deal, man. It's over. It's over. Anyway, I want to wrap it up. I want to say to everyone out there, happy holidays. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.